Hi, welcome to Write Your Own Music. These tutorial videos should help you through the basics and also some of the more advanced features of the program. Okay, so let's take it from the top, and literally top left hand corner we've got track editor and options. We can load songs, we can save songs, and we can load some demo songs. Then over to the right of there we've got 4 red blocks, and they are beat LEDs, and they will light up when we play a song back. They're quite handy. Underneath there we've got 130, 130. That is the BPM, beats per minute of the song. It's just the speed of the song. Then we've got various controls and what they do. And if we go back over to the left hand side, underneath track editor we've got demo. That's the name of the song we're currently working on. 001 is the current bar. It's a musical term. If you're not familiar with it, don't worry about it. It's literally just where we are in the song. And to the right of there, the smaller digits, the one that's literally set to 1 at the moment, that's the length of the song. There is no song, so the default is obviously 1 second. And then where we are in the song, so that's increasing, that's 22 seconds, 20 seconds, and so on. The bar numbers are across the top as well. We've got 001 there, 005, 009. We don't label each one, because that would look a bit much. So we just label them every 4 groups of 4. Why we do that will obviously become evident as we move along as well. Left hand side we've got 01, 02, 03, and we go all the way down to 32. And those are the track numbers, or some people call them channels. And it just means that we can have, say, bass line in one track, drums in another, a melody in another, and so on and so forth. Helps us in terms of organisation, but also in terms of mixing as well, when we come to change the level or the stereo position of each of the parts of the song. So that gives you a general overview of what you're looking at there. Now, the first thing we're going to do is we'll create our first riff. Now, a riff is a collection of notes, or it could be a collection of rhythm sounds that play in a certain order, and that's what creates the song. They can occupy one of these squares or multiple number of squares, depending on how many notes are in them. So the first thing we'll do is we'll create a bass riff. So we need the riff editor, and we can access that by pressing Y, so I'll do that. And as you can see, all those controls, top right hand corner, have changed. Don't worry about that. Each section or each area of this product does relabel the controls. It looks a bit confusing, but it's not. You'll get used to what button does what within each area, and it's fairly straightforward. A lot of them stay the same. For instance, navigation around the product is the left analog stick. So as you can see, the crosshairs moving there. If I press the B button to come back out of the riff editor, again, the analog stick moves me around here as well. So we'll use the left analog stick to get us to 01, 001, and we'll press the riff editor button again. So there we go. Right. Within this window, you'll see that we've got an area where we can actually place individual notes down. To the left of there, we've got a musical keyboard. It's quite handy. If I move up and down, you can see that we go up and down the keyboard. It's literally just a piano keyboard, but turned upended onto its left-hand side. Further left, we've got the digit 4 there in that orange bar, and then we've got 3 in a red bar, 2, 1, and then all the way up to 6 in the opposite direction. Now, the reason we've got that is that's octave pitch, basically. Basically the pitch of the note. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to create a bass riff. So we'll need a sound. So let's go into the sample library. We do that with the left trigger button. There we go. We've got a list of various sounds. I've already prompted us to go into the bass category, and we're in bass synth. If I go left and right using the analog stick, we've got bass electric notes, bass electric, bass acoustic, and then if I go right, we can go to various categories: melody, woodwind, and melody rhythm sounds, and so on and so forth. So there's quite a lot of sounds to choose from. So let's go back to bass by moving left. Go into synth, and we'll hover over this sound here. This is the one we're going to use. If I press the start button, you can hear that sound. There you go, there's another, but we'll choose this one. We choose it by pressing A. Now, anywhere that we press A again, we'll paste a note. So let's pop some notes down. One there, one there, one there, one there, and a final one there. These dark vertical columns, they relate to the beat, the start of a beat in each bar. There's 4 beats in a bar, and that will, again, that will become evident as to why as we move on through the tutorials. So now we'll press B, which takes us out of the riff editor. As you can see, we've got a nice new riff. It says new riff 652. That's a random number at the end. Don't worry about that. You can rename these. You could call that bass riff 1 or whatever. If we move around using the stick again and we press the A button again here, and again and again, we're adding the same riff, just repeating it within the song. So now if I press the start button, there we go, so I've got our first bass line. And if we want to repeat that, I literally just press the A button and I can repeat that right ad infinitum basically. If I don't want them, I just press the X button and that will get rid of them. The reason that we use riffs, it's quite handy if we decide that we want to change that bass line. We don't have to go into each one of these and individually change it. We can go back into the riff editor there, and if I add in another note here, and I press play or start button, and then come out using the B button, these are all the same riff. So that means we haven't had to go back into each position and change the note. I'll do is I'll go back in there again and I'll just get rid of that additional note by pressing X again, and it's gone. And there we go. That's the first tutorial, and in the next tutorial we'll add some rhythm. Hello, welcome back to tutorial number 2. In the first tutorial we covered all the main controls and we also created our first riff, which was a bass riff. What we're going to do in this tutorial is create some rhythm to go along with that. So what we'll do is we'll move down to track or channel number 2 and we will create some complementary rhythm. First thing we'll do is go into the riff editor, and now we'll add some drums. Hang on a minute, there's a keyboard there. How are we going to add drums? Well, we treat all the rhythm samples exactly the same way as we treat all the melody, bass and so on. They are samples and you can play them any pitch, which is quite handy. So we'll go into the sample library, and this is where we were before with the bass. If I move to the right with the analog stick, we'll go through the melody section. I'll just play a couple of these if you like. There we go. But we'll go through and we'll get to rhythm. So the first subcategory is cymbal. We've got hi-hats, human sounds, and kick drums. Right, this is what we want. We'll start off with a kick drum. There we go. That sounds fair enough. So we'll press the A button. We've selected it just like we selected the bass sound. We'll place a kick drum on each of the dark columns, and they are the beat columns basically, and pop out of there. And as you can see, we've got a new riff. Previous one was 652, next one 654. There was a 653 and that was one I was playing around with in between the two tutorials. So let's pop that down and see what happens. Great, that's all well and good. Now let's add a hi-hat in there to make it a bit interesting. We've got a couple of options. What I could do is pop down to track 3 or channel 3 and create a new riff and put hi-hats in, or we can go in here. So back into the riff editor. We can have more than one sound basically in each riff. So what we'll do is go into the sample library and go back to hi-hats. We'll select that with A, and we'll pop a hi-hat in between each kick drum. There we go. So I'll play that back within the riff editor. And then if I press B, we'll come out and press the start button again. That's great. Okay, so what if we want to kick the song off with a bass line and no rhythm? Well, we just press the X button, get rid of that first drum, and press the start button. Okay, but everything comes in at once. Perhaps we should start with kick and then have kick and hi-hat. Well, that's the second option, the second way of doing things. So if I go into that riff and get rid of those hi-hats by pressing the X button, there we go, they've gone. So let's create a new riff here. And the last sound we used was the hi-hat sound, so that'll be the currently available sound. There we go, and if I press play within the riff editor, we'll just hear the riff without the rest of the song. And there we go. Actually, we want to get rid of that so that we start off with bass, then we get bass and kick, and then the hi-hats come in. So there you go. What we'll do next is we will change how those hi-hats sound. They sound a little bit harsh to me, I think. So we'll make them sound a bit less harsh, a little bit sort of, bit more sort of floaty and sizzly. How are we going to do that? Okay, well we can make everything in this track sound slightly different. If you look top right hand corner, you'll see there's a picture of the D-pad and it says track effects. So if I push left, there we go, that's track effects. It's actually track parameters as well, so we can change the volume of the track. We can change the pan position, that's where it is in stereo, whether it's left, right, middle. We've got filter, and that's the thing we're going to start playing with. Currently set to none, but we can set it to low, band, high, and notch. Low frequency filter only allows low frequencies through, so sort of the low end bass sounds. Band allows the mid frequencies through. High only allows the high frequencies through, sort of the sizzly hi-hat type sounds. And notch lets us notch out literally some of the bass, some of the mid, wherever we want. Well, how can we control it? Well, that's the next one. We've got frequency, and that tells Write Your Own Music where you would like the filter to start working. So I'll move that up a little bit for the hi-hats, because we just want the top end of the hi-hat. Q factor, that's how intense the drop-off is at the frequency. Basically that slider there. We'll leave that where it is for now, which is it's the lowest setting. Effect level, that's got nothing to do with filters, that's to do with whether you want reverb on your track or delay. When I say track, I mean channel. So on this particular channel, channel 3, we could have some reverb on those hi-hats, but we won't. We'll leave it at 0 for now. So if we press the B button and press play again, those hi-hats aren't quite as loud or quite as harsh. We can make them even more sort of sizzly. We'll ramp the frequency a bit further. There we go. So you can play with that to your heart's content and just change how you want that to sound. And there endeth that lesson, and we'll see you again. Okay, welcome back. This is the third tutorial. What we're going to do here is add a little bit of melody and then see how we can build up the song a little bit more. So again, it's into the riff editor. We press the left trigger button, takes us into the sample library. We'll pop left until we get to the melody sounds. So we've got a few to choose from here. We've got brass sounds, hard synth sounds, keyboard sounds, like pianos, that kind of thing. Might be wondering why we've got all these different octaves of keyboard, or the piano in fact. Now, piano sounds a bit more natural if you've got a sample of every note. We haven't gone quite that far here, but we've got a sample at each octave, so that should keep things interesting. Okay, well let's choose octave 3, press the A button, and there we are back to the riff editor, so that is the sound we're going to be playing with. Now if we place another note up here, and then press the start button, we've got two notes at the same time, which is basically called a chord. You can have a 3-note chord if you have another one there. So let's add that to our song. We won't put them on the beat. We'll put them here. If you don't like where the note is, all you've got to do is just press the X button. Right, press B. And if we press A again, as before. Now that piano's quite loud, so what we can do is go to the track effects for track 4, channel 4, and we'll just slide that down to about halfway. Okay, and if we go back into there again, let's move them over to the right hand side a little bit. So there we go. Right, and one more little change. We'll go down to the effect level and we'll ramp that up a little bit, and we should now get some reverb on the piano, so it'll make it sound a bit more interesting. There we go. So now we've got a bit of melody, and it's over to the right hand side, so we're starting to play around with the stereo field. Let's repeat that group of riffs along in this direction, basically. So we're extending our song. Okay, how do we do that? We could do it the hard way. All we've got to do is go into the riff editor, press B, so we haven't changed anything, but we've now made that the current riff, and I can do that. Okay, and then we go into here, go into the riff editor, come back out, that's made that the current riff. And isn't this really tedious? Okay, let's not bother. Let me get rid of all these and do it the quick way. So we go up to here, we press the back button, which activates area select mode, and use the analog stick. I'm going to copy that selection of notes, well, riffs actually, and we press the A button, and hey presto, we've got that section and we can put it anywhere we like. So let's continue the song by doing that. And if we want to copy bigger chunks, all we've got to do is press B. We're out of select mode. Go here again, press the back button, and press A again, and there we go, we've got a bigger selection, and we can do that. So that's quite useful. What else can we do with area select? Well, let's say we don't want the melody to start until here. So let's go over here, press area select, go there, and we press X instead, and it's removed it, so it's cut it, but we could paste it if we wanted, but we won't. We'll press B, and there we go, it's just gone. So there, as you can see, we're building up a song. So we start with the bass, then the kick drums, then the hi-hats come in, and then eventually here we get the melody. And if we wanted, we could do a dropout, so we get rid of the bass, we just have the hi-hats there. Then it kicks back in again. So, you know, you can start to arrange your song. So there we go, that's the end of the third tutorial, and we will see you again. Welcome back. Here we are, tutorial 4. Right, okay. So, let's dig a little deeper now. We'll take a look at one of the riffs we originally created, which was the bass riff. And we'll go into the riff editor. Press play. There we go. So, what can we do with this? Well, if you look at the top right hand corner, we've got the D-pad there. If you press up, you'll rename the riff, which is something I mentioned you could do earlier on. If you press right, full screen toggle. We've not done that before. What does that do? Okay, well, if we press it, you'll see that it just gives us the entire screen to be playing around with the riff editor. And if I press right again, it goes back to the smaller screen. That's quite handy if you've got lots of chords and you've got a long riff, which we haven't done yet actually. We've only done 1 bar riffs, but we'll tackle that in a little moment. So what else can we do? Well, if you look at the D-pad again, if you press down, you get note parameters, So we'll do that, and there you go. Volume is now flashing. If I press right on the D-pad, we go to pan, attack, release, offset, and bend. Okay, what do these do? Right, volume. We use the D-pad to navigate between each one of these options, but to actually change them, we use the left analog stick, the navigation stick. So I'll drop the volume down there, and then press B to come back out, and press the start button. And as you'll have heard, that first note is a lot quieter. So we'll pop back down in there. We'll turn the volume back up to the centre where it was before. Let's have a play with pan. I think you probably guess what this is going to do. If I set that far left and come out, and then go over to the next note, press down again, go over to the right, and push the pan all the way over to the far right hand side. If then I hover I'll hover over the first note, that's pan left. Hover over the next one, it's pan right. So there we go, let's play. There you go, so the first note was in the left speaker, second was in the right, and then they were all in the middle. So that's quite handy if you wanted to bounce the bass around or go around in a circle. You could just gradually change the pan position of each note. Attack, that's how quickly the sound comes in. So we'll just nudge that up a little bit and then press play. So it wasn't quite as harsh at the start, it sort of ramped in. And then if we go back in, and we'll change that so it starts quite sharply again, and we go to release, and we'll make that a lot shorter. So it was a slightly curtailed note. Basically all that means is when we get to the end of the note, the volume of the sound will drop off very quickly. Offset, okay, what that does is each of the samples that we have, it starts and it goes through and plays its sound and it comes to an end. So if you've got a sound which is kind of like bow, it's got a bit of a filter sweep in it, you can change where you start playing that sound. So you can have effects that go bow 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 bow. We can demonstrate that actually. So what I'll do is I'll come out and create a new riff. So go into the riff editor here, and we will choose a sound that's going to allow us to do that. So if we go back into here, so as you can hear, that's not going to help us. We need one that's got something with a sweeping sound in it. There we go. So as you can hear, that one goes meow. Excuse my impersonation of it. So let's choose that. And then what we'll do is we'll drop down here and we'll change the offset a little bit. And we'll do that for the next one. I've just expanded the screen there so we can see a bit more what's going on. Let's go to the offset there. And again. Right, so if you keep an eye on that offset slider, you'll see it's kind of near the letter O. Then it's moving back, and then back again, and then back again. So let's play that now. So that's the effect you get. It's going to be quite useful. And there we go. That's the end of this tutorial, and I will see you again. Hello, and welcome back. We're at tutorial number 5, and we've learnt a lot so far, but what we're going to do now is deal with a few sort of little tricks so we can make our songs even more interesting. So what I'm going to do, I've gone into area select there by pressing back, and I'm going to highlight the whole thing, and I'm going to press X and then B, and it's gone. There is an easier way of doing that. If we press the top menu button, which is the left shoulder button, and we go to options. As you can see, we've got clear song there, so I could have just done that instead. Makes things a little bit easier. As you can see here, within the settings, we can change the BPM, make the song play faster or more slowly. The effect type, when we went into the track here, track effects, and we've got the effect level. That effect is basically dictated by this slider here. So we've got reverb, echo and delay, and then each one has a size. So the reverb, could be a larger reverb, a larger room, that kind of thing. Okay, so we're back in here. We've got a blank space to play with. I'm going to look at stereo, basically. If I go into here and create a new riff, we'll go in here and we'll choose a melody sound. We'll use the piano that we used last time. So there we go. So I will pop a few notes down. And then we'll just press play on that. Okay. Now, as you can hear, that sounds like it's bang in the middle of the stereo image. And I've shown you a couple of ways that we can change the pan. We could actually, note by note, go in here and change the position of the note. Or if I come out of the riff editor, we could go to the track effect side of things and we could change the position there. Well, that's all well and good, but all we're doing is changing literally where it is in the stereo field. Which speaker it sounds like it's coming out of which direction. What I'm talking about is making the sound more stereo in itself, so that when we listen to any sound, we hear a different sound in our left ear and a different sound in our right ear. So we ship this with mono samples. So how can we make it sound a bit more interesting, a bit wider? The sound will sound a bit wider. Okay, well, what we can do is it's a little trick basically. So what we'll do is we'll take riff 658, which is our piano riff. We'll pop it into channel 2. So now it'll just sound twice as loud. Okay, so that's the first part. What are we going to do now? Well, we're going to pan this channel all the way over to the left. So we use the analog stick and just push left. There we go. And we're going to push this one all the way over to the right. So again, track effects, go down. And all the way over to the right. So now it will be as if there was just one riff playing, and it's just going to be in the middle again. Great. Well, we haven't really achieved much. No, we haven't. So let's clone this riff. Okay, well, what does clone mean? If we want to create a new riff that is basically identical to another riff, but then change the notes a little bit, that's what we do. So if we press the right shoulder button, we get this little menu. Some of the things we've seen, we've got riff library, riff editor, riff palette, area select, which is, you press the back button. So let's choose clone riff and then press A. There we go. So if we go up here, we've got new riff 658, that was the original piano riff. New riff 658-01, so that's a completely different riff. So if I change notes in here now, it's not going to affect the notes that are in that riff, because they're two completely different riffs. They are unfortunately the same colour, but they're a different name. So let's go into here, and this is where the magic happens. We can also use area select within a riff. So we'll press the back button. We'll highlight those notes that we've entered. Now, if we press down, if you look top right hand corner of the screen, you can see the D-pad and it's saying multi-note parameters down. So if I press down, we can now change the parameters of all of those notes all at the same time. So you might think, oh, you'll do pan. No, that's not going to have any effect at all. I'm going to go to offset, and I'm just going to nudge that just a couple of spaces, and then I'm going to press B, and then B again. So we've now changed the offset on all of those notes. So the piano sound on those notes is we're going to start a little bit later into the sound. Now I'll press B and then press play again. Now you should be able to hear that that sounds a bit more sort of stereo, a bit wider sounding. And that's a kind of, an oral trick. It's basically your ears saying, well, in the left-hand speaker I'm hearing those piano notes, but in the right-hand speaker I'm hearing them, they sound slightly different. So your brain combines those two different sounds together and you get that wider sound. So that's quite a useful little trick. And I shall see you again in the next tutorial.